Excellent. It is much pleasure that I've had the honor of sort of introducing Patryk today, although I'm very many miles and kilometers away from there. So hello from Iran, first of all, to everybody. Hello to everybody who's present there. And thank you particularly to Ekaterina for all the efforts, and also for Patryk for taking the time to come down to Lille. I wish I was there myself and I could do this honor in person. I should first start with a bit of reiteration of the purpose of the Iran Turan Harom talk series and the Iran Turan network as a whole, and then go on to introduce our speaker today. The Iran Turan Harom network was a brainchild of really Ekaterina and myself a year ago, a bit earlier than this, where we thought that as people who work on late antique Central and West Asia and the Mediterranean basin, we need to create some sort of a system in which we can communicate across different research fields, have people who work on the Roman Byzantine side, people who work on the Caucasus, people who work on Iran, people who work on Central Asia, and then particularly across time, artificial boundaries of time, like the pre-Islamic Islamic period, Roman, Byzantine, and things of the sort. And we tried to basically make this a bit alternative by shifting the focus a little bit east from the Mediterranean and onto the Sasanian Empire, and thus the name Iran Turan Harom, Iran, Turan the east, Harom, Rome the west. So sort of a bit of an Iran-focused look at the world. We had I like to think, successful meeting last summer in form of a research forum in which we had many great scholars attending the something that you could say was a mixture of a conference and a summer school for a week in Lille, where we had people presenting various papers, commenting on each other's work and learning from each other, the older generation learning from the younger generation about the research to come, and hopefully the younger generation learning the tricks of the trade and the way and the things that have been done. And we thought that after that, while we are waiting to do another of those forums, one of the good ideas is to have a talk series, and which is the newest addition to the network and to the whole collective that we are having here. And the talk series was really a combination of several concerns. One of them is the concern of mine about the lack of inclusion of the Sasanian studies in the studies of late antiquity. One is the concern of the communication across the historical boundaries of Rome, Sasanians, and Central Asia and China, and also thematic concerns of diplomacy, economic history, war, and things of the sort, and of course religion and languages and everything else. And we thought that having a wide array of talks would be quite useful. We had our first talk, very interesting talk by Pavel Lurie, as the first talk of the series, that was on a very interesting take on the one section of Ibn Khurradad, Al-Masalik wal-Mamalik, and its connection to a possible Sasanian origin, so across the Islamic and Sasanian boundaries. And we are very honored today to have our second speaker, Dr. Patryk Skupniewicz, who is a very good friend of mine, and I've had the honor of both knowing him in person and also working with him on a recent volume where one of his articles was published on war in ancient Iran, war in the Sasanian period. Patryk is an art historian with a PhD from a university. Honestly, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the name of the university. I don't know why the Poles thought that having L sound like W and W sound like V and then having them next to each other is a good idea, but it means that none of us can pronounce the name of the Polish places. But at the University of, I would say, just Siedlce, has a PhD from there, and in art history. Patryk has written across a really wide array of subjects relating to war and history, and most importantly, art history, as particularly it relates to the art of war and things such as weaponry and others. I can proudly say again that I had the honor of being the editor of a recent volume with one of his articles, but the list of his publications is beyond the time that we have here. Without further ado, I want to ask Patryk to start his talk, which is today's titled Elephants in Central Asian and Iranian Art of Late Antiquity and Early Middle Ages. I shall turn the floor to Patryk. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Conrad. Thank you very much. So I'm really extremely grateful for being able to participate in such a great project led by Katarina and Hodadat. I admire your energy, organizational skills, and basically the will to propagate the knowledge centered around the ancient Iran, a topic which I assume is close to all our hearts. And it's a great honor to be a second speaker of the Iran to Iran and Chrom talk series. The topic of today's presentation came across during my fellowship at the Wyvern Research Institute in London last year, where I had the privilege to be to research part of the Wyvern collection. It is indeed an amazing place, full of rich objects, and collection is really astounding. The fellowship resulted in several research ideas, which I hope to present gradually, and I truly hope to return to the place one day for further study. The elephants,
who soon will appear in the room,
are anything but the core subject of the ancient Iranian iconography. Despite their marginal role in quantitative terms, they seem to carry certain significance, and the study may, I hope that it may lead to alternative interpretations or approaches of the well-known monuments. My research approach is usually concentrated on structures, on the conventional images, repetitive models, rather than what is actually depicted, except for arms and armor. Then it's yes, I'm all in. However, the connection between these two spheres of research does not allow strict separation. A structure always employs a motive, and it depicts something, and the motives build the structure. It cannot be divided as much as I would love it. Even if both parts of pictorial culture are equally schematic and subdued to strong decorum. So even if both are really functioning in the same way, with the same repetitive way, they cannot be peeled one from another. So I'm not really betraying my traditional method. I'm rather trying to supplement it. Thus, I invite you to join me in my quest for understanding functioning of the elephant motif in the late antique arts of Iran and Central Asia, with probably more focus on Central Asia.
Just here and
okay. So I'm not going to present the evolution of pachyderms or get into detailed differences between their breeds and species. It must be emphasized, however, that they used to represent greater variety and they occupied much wider geographical areas, which include so-called Syrian elephants, than now. And it was even in historical times. The elephants that went extinct in Western Asia and North Africa are historically well attested. For the purpose of the study, it is sufficient, in my opinion, to state that the Indian elephants, currently believed to be significantly smaller from the African savanna elephants, were in the ancient sources compared with now extinct African species, breeds, so-called Loxodonta africana pharaonensis. Other theory says that they might be the African forest elephants, but I don't believe. I believe that these historical comparisons regard the extinct elephants of the North Africa, and they all were smaller than their Indian counterparts. I need to stress here that the current topic is concerning the motive of the elephant in art, and not really historical or biological research of the interactions between the humans and the actual pachyderms. So it's more about the culture, perception, and existence of the elephants in art than actual elephants. In Iranian context, the employment of the elephants in the battle comes from the records of the Battle of Gaugamela, where supposedly there were 19 elephants in Darius' army. It is difficult to assess credibility of this testimony. This mention might result from anachronistic rationalization of the authors, who were aware of the military importance of the elephant corps in region in later times, and they felt obliged to mention the employment of the elephants in the battle of such a crucial importance like Gaugamela. On the other hand, we must agree that the number seems oddly specific. And despite the fact that we, at least I, do not find any traces of the elephants in the Achaemenid milieu, they might have been mustered. We need to bear in mind that Gaugamela was the battle of apocalyptic size, part of campaign for the very survival of the empire. Well, failed campaign, but it was really a struggle for survival. In such dire straits, Darius summoned all the forces available, including the semi-independent or totally independent allies. Thus, the 19 elephants at Gaugamela, even if found credible, might not refer to actual employment of pachyderms by the Achaemenids, but rather point to the desperation of the mobilization of all the sources available. Somehow, I would compare it to the legendary campaign against the Hyona, vividly described in Ayagara Zaveran, where we observe that all forces gathered ruthlessly against one opponent. It is certain that Alexander faced the war elephants in the Battle of Hydaspes, where he faced the army of the Indian local ruler Porus. The battle proved a hard victory, and we may state that this was the first well-attested, certain encounter with the military efficiency of the elephants. The point, which initiated almost 2-century-long career of the elephants in warfare of Western Asia and Mediterranean. Actually, even further, I'm talking about 2 centuries in Hellenistic times and the revival in the Sasanian time. Even though adoption of the war elephants is not attested in the armies of Alexander himself, the successors made them a typical or one of the highlighted features of the Hellenistic warfare, aside the phalanx and the armored lancers. The elephants were an important part of the armies of both Ptolemies and Seleucids in the giant clashes like Raphia, Panium, where Ptolemies employed smaller African types, species, breeds. I don't know if biologically that's correct. While the Seleucids had a bigger and stronger Indian elephants. The Seleucids used their war elephants against Romans in Magnesia, but also against the Gauls, Galatians, and in the Maccabean revolts. So we've got the traces of that in the Bible, or at least Catholic Bible. The Romans faced the elephants already warring the Pyrrhus, who was clearly a Hellenistic monarch, and Hannibal, whose employment of the war elephants was clearly inspired by the Hellenistic practices, and is one of the best recognizable events of the Roman wars of the Republican era. In Iran, the mentions of elephants disappear with Seleucids. There is no mention of the war elephants among the Parthian armies. The Scriptores Historia Augusta attribute employment of the war elephants to Ardashir already, which is often contested due to the notorious lack of reliability of the source and likely anachronistic rationalization, which placed well-attested reality of 4th century in early Sasanian environment. From the 4th century onwards, we observe the elephants in the Sasanian warfare with no doubt. They come across in Ammianus Marcellinus, eyewitness of the described events, Zosimus, Armenian sources, and finally in these histories of the Islamic conquest. We have the vivid descriptions of their employment at the Battle of Qadisiyah. So even if these stories could be mythologized to an extent, the very fact of employment of pachyderms seems very credible. The elephants were used in spectacular executions and remained in practical use at least until Mahmud of Ghazni. Now we're going to the actual prelude, and it will be a lengthy one, as the beginning is a very delicate time. Most of the later discussion, later discussed or below discussed examples stem from the Hellenistic roots, and if they are not, if they do not, it also the Hellenism is a benchmark for the further discussion. So what we see on the slide is on the left is we've got a Porus medallion, so-called Porus medallion, which is definitely authentic, and it comes from the time shortly after the Hydaspes battle, commemorating it, and it's showing the combat between the rider, Alexander, most likely himself, in combat with the elephant riders. The depiction is realistic to a great extent. It represents correct proportions, and only the piece which is somehow conventional is the way that the person that's hit by Alexander is holding the spear. We observe such a desperate defense action in, for instance, in the Alexander mosaic, and other Hellenistic sources, visual sources, but also it must have been the actual, it must have resulted from the actual battle practice, as there are plenty of such depictions in modern, early modern Persian miniature painting. The Alexander medallion below, the golden one, is suspected to be a fake. Nevertheless, it appears it represents Alexander's head and the elephant. If it is a fake, absolutely it refers to the later Hellenistic imagery. Coming next are the depictions of Alexander himself as a heroic rider with elephant headgear, and what is and a cloak which seems to be to refer to Nemean lion's skin. But also the two types of coins minted already or late in Alexander's times. We've got two types, one so-called archer type and one chariot type. Again, I must say that the chariot type is suspected to be a fake, but definitely it's. I'm not really specialist of the Achaemenid art. It definitely refers to Achaemenid tradition of depicting kings on the chariots shooting arrows. There are some minor. I've got minor issues with that, like the bow is really not looking like any bow in Achaemenid period. So it's not neither the Scythian type, not the Mesopotamian type. Might be the Indian type as well. And nevertheless, we've got the two depictions of the elephants with the crew. On the coins with the archer type, again, we've got the archer with a bow of not person type, but really suited to or looking also suiting the descriptions of the Indian bows from the literary sources.
That actually should be seen, so we can show
yes.
with the mouse and people online.
Okay.
As well.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So this kind of bow is not matching any person art, but as the coins were to commemorate victory over India, I think that we should search for the reference there. Nevertheless, I'm using both of these types to mark a start of certain traditions, which will be continued later. After Alexander, the iconography of the elephants was adopted immediately in the iconography of his successors. I start with Ptolemy's, and we've got the portrait of Alexander in his elephant headgear. And we've got a portrait of Ptolemy, and on the reverse we have the quadriga, or chariot pulled by 4 elephants. I'm not sure if the quadriga is the right name for that, because I somehow associate it with the chariots pulled by the horses. And nevertheless, it clearly also shows that it represents also the way the elephant iconography would further develop in the West. The true elephant kings of the early Hellenistic period were the Seleucids or Seleucids. And we can see that on their coinage as well, from the very beginning. We've got Antiochus coins, we've got Seleucus coins, and they depict on the reverses, they depict walking elephants, just like the elephant on the medallion which I showed on together with Alexander. With it's they are not very different. Yeah, so. But we also see that the image of elephant is incorporated in the Hellenistic royal message, and it's doubtful. Another type of reference referring to the elephant in Seleucid coinage are the depictions of the elephant heads. And as I will illustrate later, it's yet another fixed motifs of the elephant imagery. I'm returning here. I've doubled the bottom ones to show that these elephants are depicted with horns. And please note that the horned elephant heads on the below and also on top of that, they all have a significance in part of Seleucid visual communication, possibly even the part of Seleucid regalia, as the horns were also placed on the helmets. So ideological linking them with the sacred bull of Apis, resulting from Alexander quasi-pharaonic position, does not seem very convincing. The elephants are hardly any more bullish because of the horns. The horns seem to have another semantic source. And here we also see that the horned elephants are standing or walking, and they are pulling a chariot of Athena. So two elephants that would make a biga, but meaning definitely seems far more obscure than the direct reference to Egyptian sacred bull. First, the horns came with the other elements, which create a message, which comes in combination. Secondly, there are two horned elephants pulling Athena's chariot, and this denies the reference to the unique white sacred bull, but marks the connection of the elephant as a symbol of power. Horns relate to the elephant with the Seleucids, who in turn follow the orders of Athena. So that's how this could be interpreted. So the horses mark the horns mark the Seleucids. The elephants signify their power, and the driver is Athena. It's a divine being. It's speculation. Nevertheless, I don't think that any attempt of making a sacred elephant of Thebes is feasible. In Seleucid art, we observe also some depictions of the actual war elephants, and you have a terracotta depicting the victory over Galatians on the left. We've got a Galatian warrior with a Piraeus shield, and two Falere, which are now in St. Petersburg in Hermitage, which might be Seleucid or Greco-Bactrian. That's something that we don't know for sure. Nevertheless, they represent the Seleucid art of war, and we know from the sources, from the Roman sources depicting the clashes of the Seleucids with the Romans, that indeed the turrets were employed on the backs of the elephants. Another king who keenly employed the elephant headgear was Demetrius of Bactria. He was a conqueror of India, like Alexander, Heracles, and Dionysus. Well, we can hardly say that this was a conquest of India, but definitely his rule moved far down south, expanded down southwards, and we see a combination of the elephant headgear with depiction of Heracles, who's of course one who also conquered India before him once. But also, it's clear that this is also a reference to Alexander, because everybody wants to be Alexander in Hellenistic times. But his elephant references don't end with headgear. He also added the walking elephant and elephant head on his coinage. What else? And these depictions follow Seleucid patterns. That's obvious. So we saw them in Seleucid coinage, and they are characterized by the high level of realism, the good understanding of elephant anatomy, and it's clear that the artist knew how the elephants looked like, and that they had artistic capacity to convey that. Going further, we need to also introduce the elephants in the art of Kushan kingdom. But examples will come from the territories belonging to the empire, not necessarily throughout the entire entity of its existence, and they are not always central Kushan. And clearest, most common, and also most realistic is the art of Gandhara. The elephants, which are present in the stories of Buddha and Jatakas, most commonly shown in the scene of conception of Buddha, where Maya had a dream of elephants entering her, and she was, and this was Buddha's previous life form. So when she conceived Buddha or Siddhartha, she had a dream of the white elephant. Later on, this elephant became very important part of Buddhist lore. He was believed to have 6 fangs. However, strangely, the same sort of scenes when traveled east lost the elephant, because the Buddhism there probably was did not feel it correct to depict the Buddha in the form of animal. Another Jataka story was taming of the wild elephant by Buddha himself. What I believe more interesting, however, and it's not only because the relevance to warfare, it's just that these depictions are not so clearly related to Buddhist stories, and they would apply to other models. So we have the group of warriors sitting on the warriors elephant riders. They carry the shields, they are armed, and they are definitely more than elephant riders. They are a bit oversized, please note that. And in my opinion, this emphasizes the symbolic message. Could these be the significance of the base, monument base? In all these cases, you know, it's a signification of power. To the left, we've got fragments of sculpture, and especially here, you're pleased to see that we have the warriors aren't in a very similar way. However, they are rather helplessly assisting or combating the elephant. We don't know who's the rider, and in my opinion, again, this symbolizes the power. The three phalleri on the right are rather realistic in proportions. It's difficult to say anything about their meaning. Nevertheless, the fact that three personages, and then one is the main personage, one is the rider, one is the accompanying personage are depicted. It also somehow refers to idea of rulership. And a continuation of the motifs from the previous slide, illustrating the foundation figure of the elephant as a kind of base, a strong support, a power, is also represented on these images. But also, I gathered these images to illustrate diversity and richness of harness. And I believe that attracts a very special attention. I would also like to highlight the huge phalere on the chest strap, and the rump strap as well. This seems to a reflection of the horse harness known from early pre-Kushan sculpture in Halchayan and late Kushan relief from Ragebibi, because I don't believe it can be Sasanian. There is no sound reason for that. Also plaques from Taq-e Bustan and Orlat. But later, we know this model, this layout in Sasanian art. So these fashions predate the actual introduction in the Sasanian horse harness. This monument, being a stupa, a pillar or column base, it comes from Old Termes, and it follows the semantic function of the elephant figures mentioned earlier. However, already without the rider. Abdullayev associates the monument with Buddhism, however, only through direct identification of the elephant image with that religion. This does not seem to be fully correct. There doesn't seem to be anything specifically Buddhist about the images. Naturally, the reference to the Buddhist lore cannot be excluded, but it should not be taken for granted. Here, the main image, the main illustration is in Gandharan diptych of clearly Buddhist nature. We see the model of stupa here, so that's a donor, and we've got a minor figures of musicians below. However, if we compare it to already presented fragment of the stone relief, we must see that that the model could serve more than one meaning, more than one function. And this in my opinion, supports the view of the primacy of the general image of power over very specific display of particular religious views. Oh, and the coins of Kubiszka. So Emperor Kubiszka issued a series of coins where he represented himself on riding an elephant. But please see that already that the human figures, both on Kubiszka's coins and on this Sogdian, how to go back? Because
just here.
all right, I got too excited. So we already see that the human figures here are disproportionately big. The elephant was reduced in proportion to the size of, let's say, a pony or a big dog. This marks the elephant being rather an attribute of the rider than intended depiction of the human being, or a human man riding an elephant. The process of semantic significance dominating pictorial realism can be observed here. I believe that these are the initial stages of this process. And we could already see that in making these images of these warriors sitting on the elephant necks in the Guimet Museum. So this would be a development. Also, we can see that Kubiszka is holding his trident or spear. The way later on the trident and spear will be held by the as an insignium in the Roman scenes of imperial adventus, but also on a series of Spachbedan seals in Iranian and Sasanian art. Of course, on horses, not on elephants. It's just that the meaning that the spear here, the shafted weapon, the trident, signifies the power again. So the idea of the coin is to display the power of the monarch. Oh, we come to what we probably love. So that's Taq-e Bustan. And we observe despite the symbolic composition, or the composition which is schematic and we see that the elephants are studied from nature. It's a very rare thing. So I always keep saying that art comes from art. So the biggest influence on art is another artwork or previous artwork, but probably because of rarity of the Sasanian depictions, these are very realistic, and we can see that the specific elephant pace is also depicted. Is called it's lateral amble or kind of elephant trot, and different phases of movement are shown. So it's seemingly not conventional. Also, the proportions are correct, right? So we see that the human beings on the backs of the elephants, they do not remind that of Kanishka. It also allows us to believe that harness here is the actual kit used in late Sasanian times. So here are some close-ups. We can observe very well how the harness was built, and that there are different types of it. Nevertheless, it's the least conventional picture probably from the presented one, despite the fact that that this is the unique depiction. And it's a large composition, which is quite atypical, not typical for the Sasanian art as we know it. Sasanian art shows prevalence of iconic over narrative. And here we've got completely opposite, and composition is clearly narrative. The dating of the site is disputed by crucial factor here is limited of clearly Sasanian pictorial art that survived. So we do not have, maybe the fact that we do not have comparative material comes from the fact that it did not survive. The elephants appear also in Sasanian seals. It's a very rare motif in the Sasanian sigillography. Well, it cannot be compared to winged horses, abstract signs, scorpions, human heads, or even bears. Yet we can observe here three types. So we've got the walking elephant, the elephant head, elephant on a chariot pulled by mice or rats. It's also a theme that is known in other Sasanian seals without the elephant. So the idea of chariot being pulled by the mice or rats, with I don't know another rat sitting there or another animal there, is attested. But the elephant being pulled by rats or mice is quite unique. The bulla on the far right, this one. So this is a photograph. Is containing alleged figure of the rider or Karnak, but in my opinion, this might be simply a corruption of the impression or the scratch on the original seal. Such a disproportionately small driver would be really surprising feature. So it is quite opposite to the direction which I will illustrate later. As it is very unclear, it also might be a kind of star, like we see here, star and the moon. And I would rather believe that this is a blurry thing than actual depiction of the driver. Nevertheless, we can see here in this small sample the continuation of two Hellenistic models of showing the unharnessed elephant and the elephant head, and one Sasanian narrative model, original Sasanian. This small figurine of the elephant is interpreted as a chest roof. It is absolutely realistic in the pace, in anatomy of the animal, and it also confirms introduction of the chest to Iran in Sasanian era. the last object which I would like to introduce in connection with the Sasanians would be the phalera from the Wyvern collection. And the elephant head motif is attested in Sasanian sigillography. Not common, but attested. And it seemingly derives from the Hellenistic predecessors. The phalera is quite large and might be a part of elephant harness. Employment of phalera is attested in Kushan environment, which I illustrated earlier, but we can observe it again. And this, in my opinion, links the phalera with East Iran. The four holes of the piece suggest that there were crossing straps. Therefore, it's either the part which was on the temple of the elephant. So here are the crossing straps, or the front of the chest strap phalera. However, then we would need to assume that there was additional strap, and we know that such straps existed in horse harness that were suspending the heavy phalera, not to reduce the weight on the chest. But looking into taking all these into consideration, we would also imagine that the position of the elephant was rather 90 degrees. So this would be the vertical axis. So if that was really an elephant phalera placed on an elephant, the elephant would face headstrong towards the front. And well, generally speaking, the elephants in Sasanian art are characterized by the realism, even if some forms derive from Hellenistic sources. At the end, I'm presenting this because I'm sure that some of you might have seen the plate, and not to be charged that I didn't know about it. Yes, I know about it, but I believe this is modern made. Oh, do you want me to elaborate that? No, it's just modern made. Now we are entering a domain of Sogdiana. We start with Aprasia, the Hall of Ambassadors. We see the entire mural, the reconstruction. With the reconstruction is how did the artist come to this, to the palanquin? Because there is nothing seen. Okay, there is something missing on the elephant, but that doesn't really mean that there was a palanquin over here or any sitting person. It's quite opposite. This part is so-called reconstructed to support some author's idea. It's not really a reconstruction. It's illustration of a theory, let's put it this way. We see that the elephant is already stylized. It is horse-sized, like we see here, and it is in partly horse harness with a stirrup, with typical Sasanian tassels. but it doesn't have the saddle. It has the saddle cloth, the round saddle cloth instead. Another example are the murals of Varaksha, of the site in Varaksha. And we see here the elephant riders in combat with the beasts. And they all follow the combat conventions that I love to illustrate in other articles. These are not different. So they really represent what can be seen on Sasanian silver in scenes of fighting from horseback. The stylization and proportions here are borrowed definitely from Kushan patterns. We see the horse, maybe not very clear, but we see that there is a bridle, so part of horse harness imitating, part of elephant harness, which is imitating a horse harness. And already we see the tusks growing from a lower jaw, which clearly marks that people who were painting this haven't seen the elephant, or if they saw the elephant, they preferred to use the stylization over the reality. These are highly stylized depictions, which means that already the elephant was a sign in the visual language rather. The last piece which I would like to refer to Sogdiana is the silver incense burner, recently auctioned in London. I had a great opportunity to examine it from a close distance. Unfortunately, I was not allowed to make the pictures. So here I got the picture which I took from internet. If we look at the details of this object, we will observe its relation to the Sasanian writings as in the tusks. The tusks are spouted, so they have the holes here. So in my opinion, the function of the figure changed. So originally it was intended to be a written. It's also not seen, but there is the strong girth under this part, and this is how the Sasanian animal-shaped rita were made. They are cut in two. So I believe that the piece was added later to change the function into incense burner, and the incense burner in shape of elephants remained in the area for until I think Mongol conquest. Another example where the elephants are shown already horse-sized is the art of Kizil. We can see that already on the tomb of Ida, who was a Sogdian merchant active in China and buried in China. We see the Sasanian type style of king in combat with lion, but definitely it comes from the imagery that we know from Sasanian silver. Definitely close to that is a depiction of the combat with the beasts on the vase from Louvre, Abu Dhabi, where the position of the swordsman is very similar, but also the elephant is has all the features that we discussed. So the lower the fangs growing from the lower jaw, it's too small, and clearly it's a mark of an elephant, not an elephant, not depicted by anyone who in fact saw an elephant. And the experience of the elephant might have come from the Kushan iconography. Another Kizil image where the elephant appears. This time it's only head of the elephant that is shown. I've got a close up here, and I believe that it can be traced through this phalera to earlier Hellenistic images. Such treatment of an elephant as a riding beast, which is not larger than a horse, survived also in Buddhist context. So that is definitely a Buddhist depiction from Khotan. But proportions of the human being to the elephant are really the same as we observed in Varaksha and in earlier in coinage of Huvishka. Going further to the early Tuba Empire, these are depictions on the bottle on the ivory bottle from Jeremy Pine's collection, which he dates to the 7th century, which is the early part of Tuba Empire. I would also argue that they might come, it's not only the matter of chronology, but also if they came from the southern part of Tibet or southern part of Tuba Empire, close to, let's say, Ladakh and let's say Zhangjun part of the empire, then we would understand that this realistic depiction of the elephant would come from actual experience. But going further west, which I believe refers to the part of Tuba which was earlier inhabited by Tuyuhun, so belonging to the Tuyuhun. So part of Tuba Empire, which was acquired from Tuyuhun, we see that the stylization of the elephants is very similar to the one which we observed in Sogdiana. We see the tusks, we see the bridle. There are no stirrups, sadly, but definitely it's we know that this is a stylization based on iconography, and we see these large plaques from Mengdishuan collection and the Wyvern collection, but also it's on the grave stele. So, in my opinion, we should derive these historically from the Termes, where it starts. You see the position of the horse of the elephant with one leg raised, a bit like Sasanian and Roman horses in the parade pace. This smaller, this is much smaller item. This is these are enormous. These are big ones, and this one is much smaller. We see that even the flower, the plant, would probably relate to old Termes. Another step where the elephants appear is one textile from, it's only a single textile from Katunnat, no, from Al-Sabah collection. I see it's very similar. I observe the direct connection here. Obviously, we know that the people who weave these images haven't seen the actual elephant. They relied on iconography. I'm going back to this base from Abu Dhabi Louvre, because we can observe the typical the positions of the personages on the elephant are actually the same or very analogical. Yes, we do not have the sword blade preserved in this image, but we can be sure that there was a sword blade, a sword held here. It's no other weapon feasible. So I believe that it proves clearly, at least in my opinion, that the motif which was developed in Sogdiana based on the Kushan traditions continued and was transferred to Tubal Empire and continued to be used there as well in Kizil. So the development of freestanding elephants, starting from the Hellenistic time through Buddhist art of Old Hermes, then going to Sogdiana and ending up in Tubal. We can draw such a line, but also we can see that Sasanian depictions were quite independent and relied on actual knowledge of the animals. Now, going to conclusions. What kind of meaning, except, well, we said a power, but freestanding elephants, could we associate them with a kind of message? The only, let's say, direct tip we have in this grave stela from Tibet. But in 8th century, in 10th century, sorry. So early Sung dynasty, the elephants became parts of the so-called spirit roads before the imperial tombs. And I believe that a decorum of the time and era was, of course, dominated by the Chinese. And the Tubal plaques are very likely, or absolutely most probably, they serve as the depictions of the as a decoration of the coffins. Then this leads to a possible question: what would be would the whole of ambassadors not serve as a cenotaph rather than I don't know, illustration of Navruz or anything like that. It's not only elephant there. Yeah, so all the elements in the Hall of Ambassadors can be found on either Tang tombs or Tang spirit roads. They can be always related to the funerary iconography further east. It's not a definitive. It's just a speculation here. Similarly, we can observe an evolution of the depictions of the riders with Sasanian and these, let's say, South Tubal being the most realistic, but the early Kushan ones are not unrealistic either. The greatest change also comes from the riders where the horses are, where the elephants are diminished to the size of the horses, and the rider is the main topic, and the elephant that he's riding is just an attribute. Another one following the previous one, the battle or the combat scenes on the elephants became very stylized, and I hope I illustrated that quite clearly. The elephant heads, as they started in Hellenistic art, were transferred to Sasanian and Eastern iconography. And obviously what we observe is what I call hippomorphization and bestialization of the elephants. Hippomorphization comes with horse harness. Bestialization with the fangs, which are rationalized as a beastly fangs coming from the lower jaw, like the predator. Thank you very much. I'm afraid I slightly exceeded my time.
Oh no, that's absolutely perfect. Thank you. A huge thank you. Really so rich, fascinating, elegant, beautiful, erudite, and many more. So I will turn into a second to our chat. Do we have any? Do we have questions here? To start with, we'll use our power of being present and controlling the technology.
I was thinking maybe in terms of ivory.
Yes.
Yes, ivory being a byproduct of the elephants. Does it come to your attention, or?
Yes, it's the only ivory product which I no, there are actually two ivory products in the presentation. We've got this diptych from Gandhara, and we have this bottle from I believe southern Tubal of Rangjung, probably. The connection between the elephant and the image of the elephant and the material is difficult to attest, because somehow the ivory pieces do not often represent the elephants. Somehow, strangely. And it starts in Assyrian now. You don't have, you've got plenty of Assyrian time or ivory pieces which are manufactured for Assyrian court, but none of them depicts the elephant.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll just make us see colleagues in Zoom just a second, because we switched it off. I saw.
Next question is Jeffrey Kotick.
Jeffrey Kotick, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Please go ahead. We can see you.
Hi. Yeah, so thank you for this very interesting talk. One thing I wanted to point out and maybe ask your opinion too is about the Dunhuang materials, because as you were talking, I was looking through the international Dunhuang program, which has a lot of digitized materials. And it might be worth comparing what you see on the murals because they have some paintings. They're predominantly Buddhist. And in some cases, there's elephants depicted. And I imagine it would sort of follow an Indian precedent, but it might be a way that you could compare the materials you've collected. And there's also a couple stucco images as well, which, would probably be of Central Asian origin, which could be comparable. So I guess just one suggestion would be maybe also just, if you haven't already, is to compare the elephants to what you see in the contemporary Buddhist materials, particularly in Dunhuang, because it's so well preserved.
Well, yes, thank you very much. I realize that Dunhuang is still something to research for in this field. I somehow try to drift away from the Buddhism, from the Buddhist interpretation, and specifically because if you have this immediate link between the elephant and the Buddhism, then you end up with the question: what is Varaksha? You've got I don't know how many white elephants there. Well, what is Afrasiab? You've got a white elephant there, and definitely that affects the interpretation of this tuba material, which I also believe is not representing the Buddhist law. So
Yeah.
So that is why I somehow intentionally did drift away from Dunhuang, but certainly it's a great tip for the future.
Great. Okay. Thanks so much. I appreciate the talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see we have a question from Pavel. Pavel, please go ahead.
Okay. Hello, do you hear me?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, okay. So thank you very much, Patryk, for doing this fantastic presentation of these wonderful animals done very artistically all over the Oriental art for a very long period. Yeah, and so my question is, maybe I did not listen properly, but about this fantastic phalera with the protom, or with the head of elephant. What are your arguments that it is a Sasanian piece?
It's a relation because I do not have any closer direct comparative material. So the closest one is the Sasanian seal that I presented. That's on one hand. On the other hand, I also mentioned that I believe that this must come from the very eastern part of the empire, possibly a former Bactria. So, whenever we talk about Sasanian silver piece, we have a huge geographical scope from modern Pakistan to Euphrates. In my opinion, this phalera would be from the eastern part of empire, possibly the part which was lost to Hephthalites in late 5th century and regained in 6th century. So it might be Hephthalite as well, yes. So it's not only, I'm saying that it's closer to Sasanian than, for instance, later Sogdian parts. It's far more realistic than the Sogdian examples that I presented. So hence my opinion that it is closer to the Sasanian style than to later Sogdian. but the area, you're correct, area is East Sasanian Empire.
Thank you. So I was really looking very much into it. It's a fantastic piece. And what I noticed, maybe it was my brief just ad hoc thing, that there is a line of making the ear of the animal, of the elephant, more and more decorative. So it turns, so starting from this Termes piece, in the course of time, in the East, it becomes more and more turning into a kind of a drapery.
Yes.
Rigid drapery.
Like the one
so
in,
here we have this
exactly,
ear,
like the one in
even
Israel,
more
right?
drapery, like a tubo, like a tubo picture, which is now in Dubai. And if we can even look that that the top of the ear is kind of a nail there, something like that. So I would, in fact, suggest, I would rather think that it is a more Oriental piece, maybe of Heptolite or Sogdiana artisans who worked for the tubo court. As we know, there is, by the way, another Sogdiana depiction on silver vessel, just a small one, and also with a very decorative ear, like what we see in Varaksha as well, and so on.
I agree with most of your points. I would say I would definitely agree with attribution of with the Heptolite attribution, 100%. With the Sogdian, yeah, well, it's more difficult if we see these if we see pieces like that, right? So it's more difficult for me to agree with the Sogdian origin, but definitely Heftalites are the common ground for us.
May I quickly add something here? When you say Heptolite and Sogdian, other than, well, political and geographical connection, what is the time period? What is the this approximate century that you're assigning this to?
We would go end of the 5th century to probably late 6th century.
So could it possibly be Turkic, from have a more easterly origin by any chance?
If it was Turkic, and it would be made for the Turkish market, but do we know anything about the Turks employing the elephants? That would be probably the greatest difficulty here.
Okay, thanks.
I have just a small connected to the mention just of the Turks in general. Do we know? Can we say something about the meaning and the not use, as I understand, but some meaning and perception of the elephants by these nomadic groups? And what I have in mind is this famous episode described by Theophylactus when the Kagan of the Avars asks for a gift. The elephant allegedly is sent to him. He looks and he says that he doesn't like it or whatever, and the elephant travels back to Constantinople, and the commenters, and I think there we have different also sources mentioning that at the time they had really many elephants in Constantinople due to successes of the military campaigns, again, due to the successes in the combats against the Persians. So Constantinople is particularly full of elephants, and they seem to not be doing anything of them other than using them for show. And so then this episode with the Avars, can we somehow comment on this episode, or it's just a tale?
It's actually yes, I know the story,
Yeah, sure.
but somehow it didn't it didn't match up with my topic. But if Avar Kagan was interested in living elephant, then his knowledge must have come from the sources of probably portable art.
Mhm.
And
then it didn't match.
and yes, and the fact that they didn't match made him well. He felt disappointed
What are you sending me?
because his expectations were somewhere else.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice.
But
There is a
what happens there? Yeah, sorry. Yes.
Sorry, there is a question on the chat that is sort of connected to something that I was planning to ask as well. It is asking that in one of the tubo plaques, there is an elephant that seems to be wearing a mask with a separate piece for the trunk. I was wondering actually also myself about the, I guess, the headgear or the protection for the head for the elephants. Any thoughts on that, on the actual prevalence of that and how widespread something like that is?
Okay, so on the tubo material, they are not wearing masks. They are wearing the bridles. You see the? Can you see it?
I'm
Got
looking.
the band here.
Yes.
The band
Okay.
here.
I see.
So this is not really a mask. I know
Is
that.
Is it protective? Is it being used in any way in a protective way?
No, I don't think so. I know that very often there is this image from this Hellenistic image is used here. Some people believe that there is a kind of helmet.
Yeah.
But these things are not really well attested, and they are not confirmed by the sources in combat. So I believe that elephant is quite heavy animal.
It's a bold statement.
It's a bold statement, right?
No, but it is also, if I'm not wrong, the front of the elephant's head is quite sensitive, right? Between the eyes and right above the trunk is quite a sensitive area and can be actually hurt or killed via that, right?
Yeah, well, probably, maybe. Well, the Karnaks were said to carry the knives to kill the stampeded elephants instantly by thrusting in the spine. Normally, the elephants can headbutt themselves. So when they fight, they often hit each other with their foreheads. I'm not sure about something for the further research, but I'm really not sure if these stories about elephants. Yes, we got we have modern elephant armors, but they are made from the lamellae or scales. And the reconstructions which I happen to see in here and there of these helmets from sheeted bronze, they seem to be, I don't know, the sheer weight of that would make it impossible to wear in campaign, for instance. Mine might be wrong, but I'm quite skeptical about it.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I think we are.
Some people interpreted these elements as an armor on elephants' legs, which were vulnerable. But again, I don't know how would that
It's just the skin.
affect the mobility of the elephant. That's I believe that this is just a thick skin depicted this way, and so mobility of the elephant would be affected very badly, I guess. The elephant armors that we have now, the modern ones, they do not include that kind of elephant boots. So I don't think so. I think that if the elephants were armored ever, then it's quite limited, and their functionality is also different, because now we come to the battle functionality of the elephants. The Sasanian elephants, we know from Ammianus, they were arrayed at the back of the front, so they were not in the front line, so they were not really charging. And as a matter of fact, we do not know what were they used for. From Arabic sources, we could come to conclusion that they were commanding, the command towers, so that they allowed the commander to see further and be well protected.
Or more exposed.
And, yeah, well, or more exposed, but he could see further, right? He's definitely, and he was at the back of the. He was not in the front line. In the Hellenistic era, the elephants were arrayed in the front, also before the main order of the infantry or other troops. So their function also changed.
I think there is a quotation in At-Tabari, I believe, on the Sasanian invasion of Yemen, where it says that the Sasanian general Vahbars, when he gets there, he recognizes the head of the Yemenite army by the fact that he is sitting on an elephant and leading the charge, and that's how he actually shoots him. So it might be, as well as you're saying, a way of distinguishing or having the commander have a commanding position over the army, actually.
Yeah, but also in Qadisiyah, right? When the Arabs finally get to the Sasanian commander, he's sitting on the elephant.
On an elephant, yes.
Yeah. So, but he's not in the front line. And in Bakhris, which is very important, Bakhris, when he shoots his this arrow, it's a far shot. First of all, he's an old guy, but secondly, he's far away, and this is emphasized that he made a shot from such a great distance. So, he's probably not leading a charge, but supervising the charge, or he's commanding the charge, I would say.
There's a question, Dan, please go ahead.
Yeah, so just to add to before I get to my question, just to add to what you said about the elephant's commanding tower, there's a Armenian source where a man is described as surviving a battle by hiding among the elephants rather than engaging in combat. But my question was about sort of the realistic depiction of elephants. I remember hearing one forum about sort of a more realistic depiction of animals in general in Sasanian artistic depictions. So the humans are very standard, but the animals very realistically depicted in terms of how they display emotion and how their muscles are shown. And that's why I'm wondering, is this a more general Kushan versus Sasanian art thing? Do you see very stylized depictions of animals in Kushan art in general, or is it just the elephants who are stylized?
Well, first of all, I would strongly disagree with the statement that Sasanian art had realistic depictions of the animals. If we look at the horses, they are definitely anything but realistic. If we look at the bears, they might be more realistic. The boars are realistic in Taq-e Bustan, but Taq-e Bustan is very special site. You know, Taq-e Bustan is not, it cannot be found representative because it's only in the kind.
Deers are okay.
Well, deer's okay, everything's okay, but it's one in the kind. If we took any Torotics or the horses in earlier rock reliefs, they are highly stylized. It's very difficult to say about the realism, and definitely in Torotics, not in Torotics. Obviously not in sigillography. In sigillography, all the creatures are stylized because of the size. It's very difficult probably to produce the realistic image there. I wouldn't agree with the statement that they are realistic in the society.
The second part of the question then, what about the depiction of animals in Kushan? Do you see a similar kind of stylization across animals in Kushan material? Or is there something special about elephants, particularly as a symbols of power, that cause them to be more stylized or more compressed than other animals?
If we agree with this problematic inclusion of Gandharan art into Kushan zone, let's say, sphere, then everything there is realistic, more realistic. It's the human figures are stylized in realistically looking ways. The animals, the same. So whenever we've got the horses, they really look far more realistic than the Sasanian ones. If we look any kind of animals, looks very realistic in Gandharan art. The pieces which I have shown in from the coins are also quite specific because they come from the coins, so they are the message from the king, and this allows the stylization. So I believe that the change happened there, and then entire Central Asia followed aesthetically.
Thank you. Do we have? I have a very small. I'm hesitating because we don't really have. Oh, Pavel, yes, edit an image. I saved it also for the reference. So
yes, wonderful. Yes,
the one he was mentioning. In the just make it escape maybe. In the Sogdian, in that combat scene that you call the combats, when we see tigers, attacking.
The Baraksha one, yes?
Yes, exactly. That's one. Can we just close the chat for a second?
Like this?
Yeah, I was just. So, is it a hunting scene or is it? Yes. It's a very stupid question, but I was
it's no, it's this is my initial. One of the initial problems. I believe that these are the scenes of combating the beasts, and they are quite separate in spirit from the, let's say, hunting scenes. So if you have the hunting scenes where you have multiple animals and the king just joyously killing them in hundreds, dozens, or whatever. then definitely you don't see any combat there, right? It's his Royal Highness and the prey. But in Sasanian art, or Sasanian Tarotics,
Yes.
you've got all these scenes where His Royal Highness fights the life-threatening beasts like boars, lions, tigers, and I dare to call these scenes combat scenes because the closest relation, formally, structurally, the closest relation to them comes from the combat scenes, and it derives from the scenes of human combat in Achaemenid art, and there it is well attested. Then Hellenistic art, you have similar scenes or similar layouts, compositions, identical, not similar, identical in Parthia, and they are just moving from life-threatening beasts to humans. It is strange that there is
Not the other way around, from humans to.
from humans to the beasts. Yes. So if I relate these scenes to Sasanian silver, and I see that the position of the weapons is exactly as it should be, and it refers to these tarotics, I'm saying these are life-threatening beasts.
Okay.
The personages here fight them.
I asked because to me they reminded the same pieces, the silver plates, so but yeah, I have the standard of calling them hunting scenes. I see.
My terminology for these scenes is not hunting scenes.
Yeah, I see your point. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Mark Garrison made phrased a term, heroic encounter.
Yeah.
And this is what it is. It's a heroic encounter. I like to use the word icon of violence. So this is what it is. It's heroic, and it's life-threatening, and it proves something different. But also technically, it's a very different kind of composition. So the composition with multiple beasts being killed will differ from that.
Yeah, like in Taq-e Bustan, which is different. Yes. Yeah, I see your point.
But also in silver, we also have in silver the kings riding and shooting around, and you see the beasts. Some of them are dead already. Some are just escaping, but there is no escape from the king, right?
Wonderful. All right, I think we probably even have to wrap it up because they will soon close the university. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for participation and questions. And first of all, thank you so much, Patryk, for this such rich and amazing presentation. We have also thanks in the chat from Eve McDonald, who had to leave earlier, but she's looking forward to hear more on the development of this project, I think elephant project of yours. So yeah, thank you, Amer, also for your question that was read by Hodadat. Good to see you. I don't see Hodadat anymore, but I think the connection, he lost the connection. He was in dramatic darkness and then finally it disappeared somehow into it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, everyone, again. And see you, everyone. See you again for more and further talks. But stay tuned.